I've loved plants and gardening for as long as I can remember. But before I thought about making horticulture my career, I had another passion, and that was for art history. And today I'm visiting the garden of a long-term hero of mine, and I'm intrigued to see how he combines his own love of art and of plants of all types in his garden. Art dealer and super sleuth Philip Mould started out as an expert art advisor to the House of Commons some 25 years ago and continues today to uncover rare treasures through his own gallery in London and via our TV screens. It is such a beautiful house. For me, it just sort of sets the scene for the garden.
All of this comes together, you know, the fields, the garden. It's a very, very important part of my life because I don't think there's anything more beautiful than the English garden, you know, the foxglovey sort of messy look.
Well, I could smell them before I could see them.
Well, I mean, these roses play a very important part in the story because I've been trying to, as far as possible, get roses that would have been around when my favourite artist, Sir Anthony van Dyck, was painting in the 1620s and 30s. And I wanted to get those very same inflorescences that we see in his pictures. Van Dyck was a very subtle symbolist. If he was going to show the man in man, you know, it would be his expression, his posture, his deportment. But every now and then he would add a sword, and that was, you know, the symbol of manhood. But if he was painting you, he would give you a rose, or lots of roses. And the rose was the most glorious symbol in the eyes of 17th century society for womanhood. But it was also an allegory of love. The thorny path, the uncertain pains of love, as well as something that is marvellous, something worth owning, worth having.
So have you got an example in this rose garden of a rose dating from the period of Van Dyck?
Come and have a look.
Now here, of course, you've got one of the classic old rose, Rosa gallica officinalis, the apothecary's rose, and then the sport of that, Rosa mundi here, with that lovely sort of splashing and streaking of white.
And, you know, for me, this is absolutely thrilling because this was the rose that was being bred at the time that Van Dyck was here immortalising British society, English society. So just think, you know, the great Sir Anthony would have looked upon a rose like this. That is connection, you know, that's tangible art and horticulture coming together. And of course, you'll notice petals on the ground as well. And that's another thing that you see in Van Dyck's pictures. The petals are falling, and it's another sort of deeply moving aspect of the symbol of the rose. You know, the rose doesn't last long, nor does life.
Well, this has got such a different feel from the relative formality of the rose garden, and suddenly you've got this medley of different colours and textures and shapes. I mean, dare I say, stepping on your toes, that it feels painterly.
There is a group of artists who we've been greatly inspired by, and that's the Bloomsbury group, which was a sort of melting pot for, you know, bohemia and intelligentsia. They had a love of colour, the artists amongst them, Duncan Grant, Vanessa Bell, you know, loved colour like this. And it's this almost sort of arbitrary juxtaposition of colours, you know, a bit like you'd find on a palette.
I like the way that, as you said, you've sort of got big clumps of things like the Achillea, but then you've got this odd penstemon just popping up through there, and a delphinium and a verbascum. So there is a lot in here, but it just works.
Well, I like those sort of happy accidents, like that clematis, which I promise you we didn't train up that apple tree, but just somehow it did it.
And it looks beautiful.
I think there's one artist who links art with garden better than anyone else, and that's Cedric Morris. He understood about breeding plants, in particular irises. And there's one painting I have which shows his innate understanding of plants, because he was a plantsman, but also he's responding to these plants emotionally, to the irises in an artistic way. And to me, it's the fusion of all of those disciplines.
I think you've absolutely achieved what you set out to do, which was create that sort of ebullient cottage garden feel. It's really very special.